All right, just me this week. No Caleb. He's super busy in the summers, so this could happen sometimes. Also, we don't really have a real intro for this show, but no Tanner this week either. Gonna solo it. Got a little NFL to talk about. There was an interesting report from Pablo Torre about an NFL collusion case that he uncovered that both the NFL and NFLPA have been keeping under wraps for about 5 months. Super interesting. We'll dive into that just a little, and then we'll talk about the NBA draft, which happened last night. If you're listening to this when it came out, round 2 is tonight, I believe. But we'll jump into some NBA trades too before we go. So let's roll. All right, so this week on his show, Pablo Finds Out. Actually, Pablo Torre Finds Out. I think it's pronounced Torre. Forgive me if it's Torre. But on Pablo Torre Finds Out, he had Pro Football Talk's Mike Florio on, and they discussed the 61-page document that Pablo was able to get his hands on. I have no idea how he managed to access that, but it's a document about a collusion case filed against the NFL, in which the results of this case have been kept under wraps by the NFL and the NFL Players Association for about 5 months. If I'm not mistaken, this lawsuit was public in the sense that we knew it was happening. I believe it was spearheaded by Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, maybe one other. I don't want to put a wrong name in there, but essentially their claim was that the NFL leadership directly encouraged teams to reduce guarantees in the contracts of veterans, particularly veteran quarterbacks, after the Deshaun Watson contract. So if you remember, the Browns gave Deshaun Watson historically high $230 million guaranteed. The highest guarantee ever. In fact, his whole entire contract was fully guaranteed $230 million. And basically what this case discovered was that Roger Goodell encouraged the NFL Management Council, which I believe is spearheaded by Giants owner Mr. Mara. He encouraged them to make sure that their pitch that year to the owners in the owners meeting really hit home that these guaranteed contracts cannot become the norm. That giving out more runs the risk of it becoming the norm, which could jeopardize teams when they make a poor investment and now they have fully guaranteed contracts going to a player who is not performing. This brought up the lawsuit, obviously, because players would like the market to be free. If the team would like to give me a guaranteed deal, I should be allowed to go get a guaranteed deal. And the NFL commissioner should not be stopping teams from offering me that. I will say, I kind of assumed that this was happening. I didn't think it was so, they were so out in the open about it in these meetings. I just assumed it was kind of like an unwritten rule that they kind of all looked around the room and were like, hey, we're not going to do that Watson thing, right? We're not all as dumb as the Browns are. We're not going to make this the norm and all start giving everyone guarantees. Because obviously the owners want to keep their money. They don't want to give all the guarantees. And that's essentially what was happening, except in this case, they were quite literally being encouraged, I should say, not to do this. And I will say all of this should be considered alleged, just simply because I have not read the document. I'm piecing together what I have heard listening to Pablo's show and reading some clips, reading some articles and such from Mike Florio. So consider it all alleged, but you can listen to Pablo's show to know exactly what happened. But it's pretty crazy, really, to think that Goodell and the management council was pushing so hard for this. Again, I would have thought it was kind of an unwritten rule. And you had to figure, right? A lot of us, when we saw this Deshaun Watson contract, I think a lot of us were thinking, because at the time Lamar was looking for a new deal, and him and the Ravens weren't making a ton of progress. And I think a lot of us saw that and said, man, a QB in his division who has some legal issues and doesn't have any hardware, which Lamar at the time had an MVP. He has 2 now. Just got a fully guaranteed $230 million contract. Of course, Lamar was going to ask for a fully guaranteed contract, as he should, because there's a direct comparison. Someone in your very division just got one who is far less deserving. And then someone like Goodell and the management council helped to encourage that to not happen. What's interesting about the file is that the conclusion of the lawsuit, essentially the NFL won and the NFLPA lost. So I'm not really sure how, because to my understanding, from what I've read, the judge did say that this happened, that the NFL did encourage the owners not to give out guaranteed contracts or to reduce guarantees for veterans in their contracts, and somehow they still won the lawsuit. I don't really understand how that works. Maybe they went after them for something that they should have listed as something else. They got off on a technicality. I'm not really sure. But I do know that, weirdly enough, both the NFL and NFLPA have seemingly been trying to keep the result of this lawsuit under wraps, which doesn't really make sense to me. I could see the NFL. Actually, you could argue the NFL will be okay with the results coming out because, hey, look, we won the lawsuit. And then if you're the NFLPA, you would probably want it to come out because you want people to be able to form that opinion of, wow, this is crazy that the NFL was pushing that. So just really interesting. I would recommend, if you decide to turn this show off because it's just me, which I would not blame you, go turn on Pablo's show because Pablo Torre finds out. That was a very interesting episode, and sit down with Mike Florio talking about this document. As far as NFL goes, I don't think there's a whole lot of other news. We're kind of in the dark days of the off season, waiting for training camp to arrive. We still got another month-ish, so we'll get there. We'll hang in there. In the meantime, the NBA draft is, well, as I'm recording this, is tonight, but it was last night. Cooper Flagg went number 1. That I can tell you. I can time travel and tell you that Cooper Flagg went number 1. To the Mavericks. Nico Harrison gets bailed out with a 1.8% chance to get the first pick, and I'm assuming he will not mess it up. It will be Cooper Flagg. Incredibly high ceiling. More impressively, incredibly high floor. So Cooper Flagg may never reach his ceiling, but his floor, obviously barring any crazy circumstances like unfortunate injuries and so on, from a performance standpoint, his floor is very, very low. I see a lot of comparisons to Kawhi between the experts, but I tend to agree his game feels very similar. So you can't miss with that pick. We'll probably see back-to-back Rutgers players going, right? We're going to see Dylan Harper. We're going to see Ace Bailey. Ace Bailey could fall a pick or two. We'll see. But Harper should be the second pick. I imagine he'll go to the Spurs unless they trade out if they get an offer that wows them. Because they do have Castle and De'Aaron Fox. So if they do get Harper, maybe they trade Fox and or Castle, because I don't think they really anticipated getting a pick as high as number 2. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. The second round is tonight, if you're listening to this when it came out. Lakers don't have a pick in round 1. That's unfortunate for all my Lakers fans out there. So I'm excited for round 2. Hoping the Lakers I would like to see them get Caleb Love in round 2. I know what you're thinking. They need a big. I know, they do. But just a big Caleb Love fan. This is a Caleb Love podcast. I think we mentioned that during the tournament. So it would be cool to see him on the Lakers. We also had some NBA trades. This is something that typically tends to happen right around the end of the finals. You know, they move quick. The NBA moves quick. I don't think we've recorded since. We definitely have not since Kevin Durant got moved. He leaves Phoenix for the Rockets. Phoenix is acquiring Dylan Brooks, Jalen Green, 5 second-round picks, and a 2025 first-round pick this year, top 10, number 10 to be specific, which I believe they will use for Derek Queen out of Maryland. So keep an eye out for that. You'll know by now if they did. Additionally, in this trade, the obvious, Houston's acquiring Kevin Durant. That's all they're getting. But this, I think, is a pretty good move for the Rockets because it does immediately improve them. You do run the risk of Jalen Green panning out to be the player that they maybe thought he would be. We've seen the flashes, right? He had that huge game against, I believe it was Golden State this year, where he dropped like 30 in the playoffs. But he also had the entire rest of the series, I think he probably averaged like 10, maybe 13. Like, very inconsistent, but very capable. So we'll see if Phoenix even holds on to him. Wherever he lands and plays, it'll be interesting to see how it pans out for him. This next trade I thought was hilarious. One of the funniest trades I've ever seen in my life. I am a huge Anthony Simons fan. I don't know if I've mentioned that on this show. I have dozens of his rookie cards, like all in on Anthony Simons. I think he's a very good young player, although he's 26 now, so he's not exactly spry, but still obviously very young. Boston acquires Anthony Simons and 2 second-round picks from Portland for Drew Holiday, who Portland traded for. They traded Damian Lillard for Drew Holiday and more. There was more in that trade. But to sum it up, they traded Damian Lillard for Drew Holiday. Damian Lillard goes to the Bucks. Drew Holiday goes to the Blazers. The Blazers then, I don't remember if they bought out Drew Holiday or traded him to Boston. I think they bought him out. So they didn't even get anything back. He goes to Boston, wins the title, his second title. And now he gets traded to Portland again. So Portland's now traded Dame and Anthony Simons, who, if you don't really follow NBA, or even if you do, you might not follow the Blazers. Anthony Simons is Portland's best player. Some would maybe argue is Danny Advia because he had such a good year this year. Jeremy Grant's very good. But Anthony Simons is their best young player, 26. He can score. He averaged 19 this past year as probably the number one scoring threat on the team. So now he'll be on a team where things will open up a little more because they're going to focus more on Jaylen Brown and others. And Portland's now traded him and Dame for the same player twice, which is very, very funny to me. Reports have been coming out, I don't know how reliable, that Drew Holiday has no interest in playing for Portland, which I do not blame him at all. I wouldn't want to either. So it'll be interesting to see where he lands. I would assume they, one way or another, will probably accommodate Drew Holiday. I think he would be great. Obviously, a contender that could use, the veteran leadership, a guy that knows how to win. He's won 2 titles. A very good perimeter defender. I think still, even at his age, one of the better in the league at the point guard position. I think he would be an upgrade over Mike Conley from Minnesota. So keep an eye out for that. But I do love Mike Conley, so I don't want it to be at the expense of Mike Conley. I'm a little torn on that. But I think he would be a very good fit there. We also had the Wizards and Pelicans working out a deal. This deal sends CJ McCollum. I don't know why I said it like that. CJ McCollum. Kelly Olynyk. And a future second-round pick to the Pelicans. Sorry, to the Wizards, who are giving up Jordan Poole and Sadiq Bey. Standard Wizards move, right? Jordan Poole really wasn't that special for them. But at the end of the day, you are trading a younger player for older players, expiring contracts, I assume, and meaningless second-round picks. This is just the Wizards. They are perpetually rebuilding. Maybe one of these days they'll stumble into a good move. We'll see. Lastly, as far as trades are concerned, that I'm aware of, unless something happens almost certainly there will be trades tonight. Or as you're hearing this, if you're listening when it came out, last night during the draft. It's always trades during the draft. So there'll probably be some movement during the draft. But as of before the draft, when I'm recording, the last one to cover is Kristaps Porzingis and a second-round pick going to Atlanta, Georges Niang and a second-round pick going to Boston, Terrence Mann and a first-round pick going to Brooklyn. I feel like Boston didn't get enough for Kristaps, but he does have that like mysterious illness that's causing him not to play. So you're kind of taking a chance on that if you're Atlanta. But you're also not giving much up if you're anyone. I don't even know what Brooklyn gave up. They're just getting Terrence Mann for free, who I think is a solid role player, and a first-round pick. Did they have Niang? Where was Niang playing? Was he in Atlanta or Brooklyn? Either way, I feel like Brooklyn won this trade. We'll see how it works out for Atlanta if Kristaps can actually play, can physically play. That would be ideal. So we'll see how that goes. Georges Niang, funny name. Me and Caleb were talking about this after we recorded the regular episode. His name is Georges Niang. Like this trade almost reads as like, oh yeah, Boston got a second round pick. They got Georges Niang. How many Georges did they get? So snuck your Caleb joke in there for you. Your weekly Caleb sports joke, some Caleb comedy. Caleb was the one to point that out. Georges. But that's your trade update for the NBA. I have a NBA future that I placed yesterday, as you're hearing this 2 days ago. And it is on the Raptors to win the Eastern Conference. Now, I will say, I'm addicted to plus signs. So I added the Bills to win the Super Bowl. That's not even necessarily a prediction as much as it is. I'm going to be rooting for it anyway. Might as well stick my Raptors ticket on there. And we'll see if the North prevails these coming seasons. But I think the Raptors have a chance to replicate what they did in 2019, which was see an opportunity in a weak Eastern Conference because LeBron had just left to strike. And they went out and got Kawhi. And they took a chance knowing it could possibly be a one-year rental. And they won. They won a chip. And everything did fall in their place because the Warriors also got injured. The ball bounced just right against the Sixers. But it worked. They won. They're 2019 champions. No one can take that from them. I think they have a chance to do that this year because they have a pretty good young core, if you ask me. As it stands, at the time I'm recording this, their projected starting lineup would be Emmanuel Quickley at point guard, RJ Barrett at shooting guard, Brandon Ingram at small forward, Scotty Barnes at power forward, and Jakob Poeltl at center. That's a pretty good lineup, if you ask me. If they could play like a Pacers style basketball where they don't need one person to dominate it the whole time, that team alone could win a lot of games. In an Eastern Conference that's going to be missing Jason Tatum. So the Celtics aren't as scary as maybe they were. The Pacers are going to be missing Halliburton. So they're well coached enough that I'm sure they'll still be okay, but not having Halliburton is going to hurt. The Bucks don't have Dame. That's going to hurt. They also are still paying Dame a lot of money, so they don't have a lot of money to put more around Giannis. So I think the Raptors should be thinking this is an opportunity to strike. So I decided to take a flyer on them to win the East. And I even came up with a little trade to exemplify I shouldn't say what they could do because the trade I came up with would never happen. But I thought it was fun. I love to get on the trade machine and see what I can cook up. This trade is pretty absurd. But hang with me, all right? It's a 3-team trade between the Raptors, Sixers, and Cavs. I know what you're thinking. Who did the Raptors get? Darius Garland? It's not Joel Embiid, is it? Brother, it's both. Yeah, I know. You're turning the podcast off now because it's unrealistic. I told you it was unrealistic, but let's go over it for fun, right? So, the Raptors acquire Joel Embiid, Darius Garland, Ricky Council IV, and a second-round pick via the Sixers. The Sixers would acquire RJ Barrett, Jakob Poeltl, Ochai Agbaji, Jamal Shed, 2 first-round picks from the Raptors and 2 second-round picks from the Raptors. So getting nothing from Cleveland, all Raptors. The Cavaliers would acquire Emmanuel Quickley, Jacoby Walter, 2 first-round picks from the Raptors, and a second-round pick from the Sixers. This trade works financially. The real question is who says no. I think if you're the Cavs, who apparently are exploring moving Darius Garland, you can get combined production of Garland between Quickley and Walter if Walter pans out. He's more of a prospect right now. He's only 20 years old. But Quickley's not a bad player. I wouldn't say he's Darius Garland. Don't get me wrong. But he's not a bad player. You're also acquiring 2 first-round picks, one in 2026, one in 2027 from the Raptors. If this whole thing implodes and doesn't work for the Raptors, that could be a decent pick, right? So could be worth exploring if you're the Cavs. You also could use those picks and maybe Quickley or Walter to go get a different guard that maybe you have your eye on. So there's a lot of options there. But I think the return is at least relatively close to what it would take, at least based on the vibe of it. Feels like from what I've read and stuff, it just doesn't feel like they're that committed to Garland. So I don't know how much they really expect to get for him. I think he's a really good player. So maybe the cost would be way more, but it feels like it wouldn't be that crazy. If you're the Sixers, you're finally moving on from the process. Joel Embiid's been amazing for them, but can't stay on the court, and you kind of get a reset. Regardless of if Embiid were to go to the Raptors or whoever, I don't think it would be a bad idea for the Sixers to, in general, to kind of hit the reset button. You bring in RJ Barrett, you bring in Jakob Poeltl, Abaji, and Shed. There's some young guys in there that you can have on this team for a while. And then you're also getting 2 firsts and 2 seconds, which seconds aren't worth that much, but you are getting a couple firsts, one of which would be the 9th overall pick in last night's draft. So they could have used that if this trade were to have been done. And maybe they would demand more for Embiid, but it sounded like, I don't remember who reported it, but he was maybe sneakily available at recent trade deadlines, and there wasn't a ton of interest, so maybe he surprisingly wouldn't go for that much. He does have a huge contract. He makes $55.2 million per year and doesn't play. So you are taking a risk, and that's going to hurt the value in a trade. So something to think about. I think the Raptors should make a big splash. Maybe it's not Embiid. Maybe it's not Garland. It's certainly not both. But it's fun to think about because I think they are, if they could add a splash player like that, I think they could be a very, very good team. So something to consider. I feel like no one talks about the fact that they got Brandon Ingram. Brandon Ingram is a good player, a very, very good player. And he's still relatively young in the grand scheme of things. I feel like you could tell me he's still 22. He's not. But I would probably be like, man, I guess he is, isn't he? Like, I feel like he's one of those guys that's just perpetually really young. So, Brandon Ingram, I've always been a big Brandon Ingram fan. I think that is a huge get for them, and I think he will do very well for them. So, it'll be interesting to see, what they do going forward. I heard they're maybe interested in Derek White, who is a good player, but that's not necessarily the splash I'm looking for. I'm thinking more if they could get Jaylen Brown. I don't know that the Celtics are going to move Jaylen Brown, but that would be pretty cool. If they could get, obviously I mentioned Embiid. If they could get him, that'd be cool. Maybe take a flyer on Zion. There were reports that they would like to trade him in the offseason. Although he does have some legal stuff coming up, and also I don't really know where he fits in that lineup. But I just feel like there are options. Maybe it's Ja Morant, right? Maybe you could go get Ja. Memphis seems like they're doing at least a retool, if not a full rebuild. Maybe you could get him. Just seems like there's a lot of options. Brandon Ingram, by the way, 27. I always forget he is younger than me. He was the first high draft pick in any league that was specifically younger than me, and I remember being like, wow, that guy is about to start for the Lakers, and I'm older than him. Like, he is cooking me right now in the game of life. I feel like everyone at some point has that player, or maybe it's multiple. Brandon Ingram was that for me, but I've remained a big fan of Brandon Ingram. So, yeah, that should pretty much wrap things up. I'll leave you guys with this fun thought experiment. I saw Stephen Shea of Barstool was doing, I didn't watch the video, but my understanding of what he was doing in the video was he's going to start doing these videos where he tries to name 10 running backs from each team. He did the Jets the other day, and it had me. The Jets are in my favorite team's division, the Bills, AFC East. I went through and did the whole AFC East off the dome. No time limit. You don't have to rush yourself, just throughout the day. Oh, Curtis Martin. Oh, Frank Gore. Da-da-da. You know what I mean? Just thinking of names. So he gets 10. And so my homework I'm giving you guys, because I was going to give it to Caleb, was even if you don't want to do 10, can you name 5 non-current running backs from each team in your division? Your team included, which I would assume you probably can from at least your team. But it's just fun. Fun little game to play when you're bored. You could do any position, really, but starting with running back. So that's your homework for this week. I just saw in my notes one last thing before we go. This will be our closing thoughts here. I don't know if any of you guys follow the official LASIK eye surgery account on Twitter. It's at LASIK.com, DOT.com. They are obsessed. I'm convinced their entire account exists just to tweet about professional sports referees or even college sports referees. Take a guess. I'm going to give you guys a second to think about it, okay? This will be like Dora talking to the screen. Take a guess how many times they have tweeted the word ref since January of this year. You got it? You got the number in your head? Okay, now double it. Whatever number you were thinking. Double that number. Add 5. And you're still short because that number is 250. And I only updated this yesterday. I originally counted this on today's Wednesday. I counted this on Monday. I saw them tweet about it again on Tuesday. So I had to go back and add more. They had tweeted about it 6 more times since then, the word refs. And it's usually pretty much the same exact tweet. It's just replying to someone else, so maybe they'll add some context at the top, and it finishes the same way. Yes, we offer all NBA refs free LASIK eye surgery. And they'll fill it in NHL refs, NFL, and so on. Like I said, I counted this Monday. It was 244. As of Tuesday, it was 250. I'm recording this on Wednesday evening. It could be at 270 by now. Who knows? They only exist to do that. Like, what else do they even tweet about? They can't be tweeting that much. I'm surprised that they have 250 tweets in general since January. They have 250 tweets using the word ref since January. Like, it was funny the first time, right? It was a cackle the second, maybe third time. Fourth time, it's like, oh, okay, I feel like I've seen this before. We're on 250, man. Either hang it up entirely, retire the referee bit, or save it for big time moments. Not every single time you see someone online complaining about refs. Save it for a huge, huge moment in a huge, huge game. And just do it every time they do that. Then that'd be a little funnier. It'd be like John Rothstein when he tweets out, a random matchup between UMass and UMass versus UMass Lowell on a random October day, and he'll tweet it out during the huge, massive, horrible, or just important, relevant event, even if it's not necessarily horrible. That's kind of a funny bit. LASIK could do that with really important calls, but they're overdoing it to the point where they're just anyone online. I challenge you, if you're listening to this show, tweet a complaint. What's on right now? MLB and WNBA. Tweet a complaint about an ump or a WNBA ref I don't even know if you would have to tag LASIK. I think they'd probably just find you, and they would be like, "We offer." This is exactly what they would say. Yes, comma. We offer all WNBA refs free LASIK eye surgery. That's probably what they would say. Give it a try. That's your other homework. That and just thinking about running backs in your division. That's your homework for this week. So, all right. If you stuck around for all that, I appreciate it. Sorry, it's just me this week, but unfortunately, like Tyler the Creator was saying, how it's crazy how everyone has podcasts when we need plumbers and electricians. Well, the plumbers and electricians, of which Caleb and I are neither, have jobs. So sometimes we're not able to both get on the mic at the same time. So thanks for listening, and we will talk to you guys next week. Hopefully, Caleb will be back. Peace.